Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Designated Survivor Season 3. It's interesting. It's interesting that, that watch a show that used to be on, if I'm remembering correctly, it was on ABC. For 2 seasons, it was on ABC, then unfortunately it ends up getting canceled. And, I stopped doing, like weekly reviews for shows like a while back, but I was like, all right, Season 3 is on. It came out, I think it was like 2 or so weeks ago, but I didn't hear like anything about it. It was like, it was just on there. And fortunately, I just happened to see that it said new episodes. And I was like, holy crap, they put the new season out. And I wanted to check it out because I really did enjoy the show when I was watching it back in, I guess it was 2 years ago. Because I think it did take an extra year before they finally put it out. And I was like, all right, I enjoyed the show. It was really interesting. And I was like, all right, I want to do a review for this. I wanted to, shoot through the episodes, which was super easy because it was a really good season to me. It might actually be my favorite, but going through was just like, man, I don't know. I got to check it out. And then I decided I wanted to do a review on it. So, Designated Survivor Season 3, the official Netflix series. First off, I hope it gets to Season 4. As the title says, there will be spoilers in this review. They'll be in the second half of the review because it'll be super short. Honestly, it'll probably be like the second, like the 75% of this will be spoilers because it's the whole season review. So I'm not going to spend much time on like, it was good, it was bad, and generic stuff. I'm going to get into spoilers really quick. But for anyone who hasn't checked it out yet, I highly recommend it. If you watch the first 2 seasons, even if you haven't, I would hope that this show gets a season 4 if Netflix decides to keep it going. That's kind of that's the mystery right now. I don't know if they'll do that, if they won't do it. This is only 10 episodes, but I think that was a decent chunk, especially considering it was a show that, they have a decent chunk of actors. They have to do a lot of stuff with this show. Like the production on this show isn't very cheap. I guess technically, they redo the White House, which they kind of already did with House of Cards, but I can tell it's not the same set. Even though I don't watch House of Cards, so it could be the same set, but it looks like the set from the original show. But I'm sure they put a lot of money into this show because they do a bit of traveling. They don't do as much traveling as they did when it was on ABC because they were going all over the effing place. But it's like, okay, they have enough. They do enough setup. They got enough characters and stuff. And it's like, all right, they hopefully will continue with the season 4 because the show is pretty good. But 10 episodes for this season. If you haven't seen the show at all, I highly recommend checking it out. I don't know why you'd be watching this if you haven't seen it like whatsoever, but I'd recommend checking it out from going from season 1, especially considering having a show that goes from seasons 1 and 2 on network television to Netflix original for season 3. It's very entertaining to watch because they can't drop the F-bomb, they can't say shit, and they can't cuss people out and say goddamn and say like all the words they say in this season. You can't say any of that stuff. And it's really funny because you watch these characters for like basically 2 full years. You go seasons 1 and 2, and I'm watching it week by week, and I'm like, man, I'm really invested in the show. I like what they do with it. And then they get to Netflix, and it's like, we can say whatever we want. And you hear characters drop the F-bomb, and they have like, there's a specific scene with Seth where it's just him swearing. Like, it's a very short segment. And I was like, they solely put that in there just to have a swearing moment. And it was good. It was just like crazy. Holy crap. But definitely enjoyed that. It was just funny to watch where it's like you have these characters, you have Emily say like, what the fuck is this? And all this other stuff. But I loved it for sure. Like, I thought it was a really good season, not just because they could swear and it made it funnier to me because it's like, oh, you couldn't say that before, but it's, you get to see characters swear and stuff. So it's funny, but I really liked this season. Like, I thought it was really well done, and maybe it's because it was only 10 episodes, and I do believe the other seasons were, kind of normal, like almost 20 episode seasons, even though they were still an hour long. That's just like a ton of content because you're going from, this month, you're going like for like 8 months straight or something. So that's why some seasons feel bloated, where you have episodes where it's like, that had nothing to do with the main story. That didn't involve, like you have like superhero shows and it's like, that didn't have anything to do with anything. It's just a tiny moment just happened and that's it. And you have that for all shows because it's like, all right, well, we're doing like 22 episodes. Not every single episode is going to be, here's the main plot developing. You'll have little string episodes here and there, little filler stuff. And you get to Netflix with this season and it's just 10 episodes straight. Everything felt relevant and it was really well done. And so I think that's why this was like my favorite season, because it wasn't dragged out. Like, it was just like, boom, here's 10 episodes. It's especially considering the meat of this season was Kirkman running for re-election, and it was like, that's how they end second season, where it's like, it's like, all right, how do we do this? Is he even gonna run because he's not ready for this sort of stuff? And then he announces at the end, like, I'm gonna run as an independent, and then that picks up in season 3, and it's like, All right, that in itself, I'm sure would have been entertaining, even if it was, still on network TV. But for them to do it through Netflix and be like, all right, we're gonna cut it down from, 16 to 20 episodes to just a set 10. I think that helped the season, and I think that helped the show as a whole. Like, I felt like every episode, I was just like, this is fun, this is entertaining to watch. They're doing some good stuff with the characters. The development, I thought, was probably one of the best things they did for this season, with characters somewhat changing allegiances. Kirkman himself, especially towards the end, I really love what they did. Where I was like, man, I don't know if he is that guy who is like the super cool dude as president, because he starts making the more political moves. So you start to see some of that stuff play out, throughout the season. And I thought that was really cool because he's in the campaign. He's not just president. It's like, do you do this political thing or do you not? Some stuff he does, some stuff he doesn't. But you start to see that as things move on throughout the actual race of him wanting to become president, because he does want to become president. But at the same time, it's, there's those conflicting sides. It's like, do you want to become president because it's cool, or do you want to become president because you get to do good things? So that mixture of both is kind of in there, and we get to really see that. We get to see the flaws of the person that comes off as like the super cool dude. So very well done season. I think everyone does well. Unfortunately, so there's some stuff for anyone who hasn't watched this season yet. There are two characters that are missing. I cannot freaking remember the names of anyone that's not in the show anymore. But Kirkman's son is not in it. So they have his daughter, but his son is like away at summer school, or he's away somewhere else. So he's not in the season. And we also don't have, and I wish I could remember the guy's name, but he was like the OCD guy from the last season. It was really unfortunate that he wasn't in it. They don't explain it or anything. It's just one of those things where maybe he just didn't want to be in the show. Maybe they couldn't afford to have like everyone in it. But either way, unfortunately, he's not there. They don't make a reference to it, so I assume he's just kind of out of the show, and that's all there is to it. But that sucked, because I was like, man, I like this character because he was so weird and funny. So it sucked to see him go. And the funny thing is, both those characters are missing, but they do add in like 3 new characters. So I don't think it was budget based. I think it was just like maybe there were conflicts, or they just didn't have interest, because it was like, oh, well, one season I could probably get, a better job doing this thing or whatever. I don't really know if they're on other shows or not. But I was like, oh, that kind of sucks, because well, with his son, I felt like they never did much with him anyway. And I think even in season 2, his son wasn't really in the show that much to begin with. So for him not to be in season 3 was kind of like, all right, that's not that big of a deal, because they always focus more on his daughter, because she was always, there. I think season 1, they focused a lot more on both his kids. And then as the show went on, like season 2, his son was like kind of here, kind of there, but not really there, because he was, once again, like always away at school. So it was kind of like, okay, it's not that big of a deal, because like half of season 2, he wasn't in it as well. So it was an easier transition to him not being in a full season. Leo's his name. Sadly, I don't think I'll suddenly remember the other dude's name, but yeah, he wasn't in it, so that kind of sucked, because I was like, I just thought he was such a funny character, and he was just weird and eccentric and just like this weird smart guy. So I like this character, and it sucked that he wasn't in it, but everyone else comes back, and they also add in a couple new characters, so I thought that was cool. But all in all, it was a really good 3rd season, and I really do hope they get a 4th one. Yeah, I feel like that's all I can say. Actually, I went a lot longer than I anticipated without getting into spoilers, but that's pretty much it. Like, it was good. If you haven't seen the season, I highly recommend you check it out. So I'm gonna get into spoilers now. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's easy to get through, because I feel like it's so entertaining. Like, I was just shooting through episodes, and I was like, cool. It's that normal binge watching thing, but I felt like it was just so much intensity, like pretty much the whole season. It was just like, well, what's happening here? Who's living? Who's dying? Who's lying? Who's telling the truth? What's gonna happen? Whole season, I think, was just incredibly well done. So go check it out. And then come back, let me know what you guys thought about it. But getting right into the spoilers, kind of have to talk about the ending. I feel like I always do that. It's always, you start with the ending, because that's just the craziest part. Actually, it's not the craziest part. I'm stupid. They killed Hannah Wells, and I'm so mad. I'm so mad about that. I was like, okay, going into it, because I happened to look it up or whatever, and I saw that some character was leaving. I thought it was supposed to be Kirkman, because like they show his picture, and I was like, crap, they spoiled that he leaves the show. So I was like, well, that's gonna be weird. Like, what are they gonna do when he leaves the show? And then it gets to the episode where Hannah dies, and I was like, oh, that wasn't about him. It was about Hannah Wells. Maggie Q. And I mentioned this before, because I love Maggie Q because of Nikita. So all I ever talked about was like, man, Maggie Q is so cool. Maggie Q doing this, Maggie Q doing that, and then she dies. And also, that was like a totally different show. Like, I was watching this season, and I was like, with them doing what they're doing in this season, with Kirkman going on the campaign, you have Emily coming back and the stuff she deals with her mother, which is insane, especially at the end. and Aaron, becoming the VP elect and stuff like that. It was like, okay, they're doing a lot with this season. And then you have Hannah Wells doing the FBI stuff. And I feel like that's always been the show where it's been very separate. And then it kind of touches it. It'll be like way over here. And then it'd be like one little thing. And it's like, and now this is one show. That's how I felt with this season, especially because it was like, I was like, she's in a totally different show. They wanted to do Designated Survivor, but they also wanted to do like an FBI CIA show. And they're like, we'll just do both. Because her story was so disconnected until she died, basically. It was totally separate because she gets fired from the FBI. That's another thing that doesn't show up is they at least reference that where she has the one dude's daughter from the last season. It was like, okay, yeah, she's staying with family friends, so that was an easy way to cut that out. And it's like, okay, so they put that simple explanation in there, and then she ends up getting fired by the FBI. She ends up being called in for the CIA, and so of course she ends up coming across some crazy mystery. And it ends up being like bioterrorism, like a crazy bioterrorist plot to, attack everyone. And then, of course, we find out what that actually led to towards the end, which was really nuts. So it was like, okay, she ends up working with this guy, Eli, and they go through this process. And it's like, okay, it ends up attacking like people who are more melanated, like dark skinned people. And so it's like this crazy thing. It's like, oh, it kills dark skinned people. They end up shooting the guy with the 88. And it's like, it's a Heil Hitler thing, which I didn't know that. Learned a lot from this season. That underage marriage thing, that blew my mind. I didn't know that was a thing, so that I learned. But, they have the 88 thing and they kill him. And it's like, okay, so this is like a crazy Nazi bioterrorist attack, like Nazis getting smart. And it was like, okay, that's how it started. And then they go through this process and it turns out to be super insane by the end. But before we actually get the answers to exactly what they were doing, where it was secretly a sterilization attack, we have them actually find the guy who's like in the brewery and stuff, and he has this insane, crazy, like biogas, and it causes like a paralytic attack, and then he's like, eventually it'll like stop your it'll basically just stop you from being able to breathe. And I was just like, okay, normal TV stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm freaking out a little because the guy's in his car, like he's talking with the FBI agent, and she sends him the picture, and he realizes what's happening. And I was like, okay, so he got the picture, he turns around real fast. I was like, all right, she's already been hit with the gas. She's fallen down the stairs. She's like paralyzed on the ground, and he's talking to her and stuff. And I was like even when it was happening, I was like, I don't think this is going to be good. Like I was just watching. I didn't even think of the article that I'd seen ahead of time, but I was just watching and I was like, I don't know if this is going to be that classic, like surprise, like TV savior moment at the very last second, because he wouldn't know that she was poisoned. Then he'd have to find a cure within like because the guy even says, he was like, it'll be like 2 minutes or something. And I was like, okay, even if he found her in the next 10 seconds, he wouldn't instantly have a cure for that, because I doubt the guy would have the cure, inside the lab. So it was just like, I mean, like technically he would have, that actually would have made a ton of sense. But it was just like the way they did it, I was already like, I think she's about to die. Like I didn't think that there was actually going to be that amazing moment where it's like, oh, thank goodness she survived in the, the final hour. And they have the song start playing, and as soon as the song started playing, I was like, oh crap, like that song played, and I knew for a fact that was it, because that's what they do. Like you'll play like some upbeat song to contrast like the super dark moment that's actually happening. And I was like, they freaking killed Hannah Wells. They killed off, Maggie Q is gone. And I was just so upset. I was like, this freaking show, still love this show, still a great season, but I was like so upset. I was like, I cannot believe that just happened. And they killed off a character. They killed off Maggie Q. It was, Maggie Q. So it was just nuts. It was like a crazy scene, and she dies, and of course Eli gets there as the guy's leaving, and then we see that there's a fire, and I was like, once that happened, it was like 100% solidified, and of course, and before he walks up to it, I was like, it's gonna explode, and then he gets closer, and it blows up, and I was like, man, that was so messed up, and I was just like, that sucks so bad, but it was a good scene. It was well done. It was totally well done. I didn't hate it or anything. It was the same in, I think it was season 1. When her partner dies, and I like that actor too, so I was like, I knew him, and I was like, oh, I don't want him to die because I like him from a bunch of stuff. So it was the same thing. It was worse. It was a lot worse with this, especially with it being like the 3rd season, because if I do remember right, it was the 1st season where he died, and it was just like way worse than this, because I was like, especially considering that was like half the show was that sort of FBI CIA component, or they added the CIA stuff this season, but that was always half the show. It was like Kirkman doing his thing, and then the FBI stuff, and then they would always blend together like every couple episodes. That was always how the show worked. Like it would be it was like two plot lines in one, and then they would combine, and it would be like, like I said, like two shows coming together really, and then they would have that one thing where it's like, oh, now that they figured out what this crazy plot is, that's when it affects Kirkman's storyline, because now it's like, all right, he dealt with, like the nuclear thing where it's like, the ship was going and the passengers, the Russian flight crew may have passed out or something crazy was happening. So then they have to hack it and stuff. And that was like a whole thing. Like the whole point of that episode was it was hidden from everybody and they avoided like nuclear disaster. And it was just like, boom, it was a blip on the radar. Like that was it. And it just happened and they solved a problem that was huge. And then it was done. And that was all one episode. And then, you just move on to the next plot until the FBI stuff comes in. And that becomes the overarching, crazy plot that leads into, like a big bad villain or like the next giant attack. And that tends to last, for a few episodes. So that's always how the show worked. So it was also really crazy to see her go, because I was like, man, that changes the dynamic. Because that was always like how the show worked. Like she was always doing her thing and it was like the entertaining sort of action stuff. Kirkman was the more dramatic side, and then eventually she would get to a certain plot point that would bring both sides together where, they would actually even end up talking, because they rarely talked anyway, and they even referenced that where it's like, I hardly knew Hannah Wells. Like, it was just like, Kirkman was like, she did a ton to save this country. I barely knew the woman, like I hardly knew her, and that's just kind of how it ended up playing out, which actually just reminded me that, the other guy who was always working with her, he wasn't in this season either. So the guy her computer guy, I forgot about him. So that just reminded me, he wasn't in the season either, but I always liked him too. But yeah, it was just crazy. I was like, I can't believe they did that. I'm sure it'll continue because of course she ended up partnering up with Eli. So I'm sure that will continue and he'll be some part of it, even though he's not CIA or FBI. He's like their new, bioterrorist guy. So I'm sure it'll work out, and that's how they'll continue that side of the storyline. Going into season 4, but it was crazy. I could not believe that happened. And I was like, no, like Maggie Q is gone. So very well done. I like how that was handled. And then of course, as it continues on, they end up finding out that it wasn't just to kill off people who were dark skinned. It was actually to sterilize people. So anyone who got infected that didn't end up dying, they would continue to breed, but they wouldn't be able to breed. I guess that was kind of the point. It's that it would sterilize people who didn't die from the disease. Anyone that was strong enough to survive it would still, be sterilized by it. And it was just like, holy crap, that's like some crazy type stuff. And then, with that being the plan of, I forgot like his exact position, but he was working for Moss's campaign. And it was like, how could you not know that this guy, he was like almost your second or third in command, pretty much. He was like huge. He was the guy we saw on TV all the time, which was a great twist. Where it was like, turn on the TV and they show the dude, and I was like, I didn't see that coming. So this dude is like a part of the terrorist attack, and I was like, I did not expect that. But I thought that was cool. And then it's like, the big question comes into play is like, well, did you know about this? Like, Moss, he was a huge part of your campaign. Like, did you know the guy? Did you not know the guy? And then, of course, we have, and I wish I could remember her name because she was fantastic in this season, but the new woman who is the campaign manager, I loved her. She swore all the effing time. But she was such a good character, and she was doing all this stuff, and I was like, man, she's so invested in helping Kirkman win. She will do the most insane illegal stuff. Like, she was spreading stuff here. Emily also did it too, which I thought was cool, like during that one scene where she spreads the Alzheimer's stuff. But that was like the whole thing. It was like she was doing this Pegasus stuff. It was like anything illegal that she could get her hands on to help Kirkman win, she did it. And I liked her character for that, because it just made it entertaining to watch her do all this insane, totally illegal stuff. Like, the FBI has to come in by the end of the season. And it was just like, this is nuts. Like, I liked her character because it just led to all this weird stuff. And so, of course, she has that video put out, because the whole thing is like, well, we can't really say much here. We can't say much there, because it's just speculation. Like, maybe he's involved. Maybe he's not involved. Kirkman's not going to make a statement to say that because it's still just totally up in the air. And then she has that video come out where it's a secret recording. And it's like, oh, once this happens, the population will be like this, and it'll be a majority non-white. And it's like, well, if that's the case, we'll lose power. And him saying that specific sort of stuff makes it seem like he was totally involved in, that crazy eugenics program. And then, of course, that's what leads Kirkman to say, like, I'm pretty sure he was involved, because how could you not after that video gets leaked? And so then it's just insane, because in the same episode, we have Emily. Not only is that the episode where Moss gets pseudo busted because people think that he did that, and so Kirkman makes the statement. I forgot the other new guy's name, the black guy. I forgot his name too, but he's the one who calls Emily to be like, hey, something illegal is happening, so just go get the stuff. So Emily finds all that, and then that's also the episode where Emily's mom dies, and the whole assisted suicide thing. It was insane. Like, that was an insane episode. Honestly, it was just like, watching that moment was so sad. It was just like, she helps her mom, and then it didn't work right, and she ends up trying to have her mom get rescued, and she calls the police, or calls the ambulance, and then they get to the hospital, and just that scene was so well done. It was just so depressing and sad, but it was so well done. And it was like, the nurse is asking her, the doctor, she's like, does your mom have a DNR? And she's like, she wouldn't answer. She's like, just, you're a doctor, you made an oath, like, just save her life. And it's like, does she have a do not resuscitate? And she's like, yeah. And so then they stop, and she's dead, and it's like, that's effed up. That was just such a crazy moment. Like, it was just done so well, and it just made it worse because it was like, she does the drink, but then she like breathes, but because she didn't actually die, and it's just like, man, that makes it so much harder. It is just so much worse. So, insane episode all the way through. Love that for sure. And then we get into the last episode where, it's Kirkman. Of course he wins naturally, and the whole episode is him trying to figure out, like, is he even worthy of the office anymore, because he made that move. That that was the biggest one. Like, it started with his sister-in-law, which I thought it was cool that they brought her on. I don't remember like the actual actress's name, but I know her from Sense8, so I was like, oh, that's cool. I know her. But when they switched from Manhattan to Houston, it was like this whole thing where at first he talked to her, and I was like, oh, okay, he's just mentioning it, like, if you want to back it, I understand. And then as it goes on, it was like he made that calculated move to tell her not to do it, because it was like, I want to win. And I was like, man, he's changing, as a character. Like, that essence of who he was, where it's like everything he does is like the cool thing to do. It's like he gets to that point where it's in the final hour. You come in, it was like, I think during that specific episode, it was like almost 4 or 5 days ahead of time, and it was like, I can't do that. Like, I have to ask you to step down because it could hurt. Like, it could hurt me. And it was like, man, that's not something that you would expect from that character. And then of course Moss is like, that was a good plan. And that's when he realizes, like, well, I fucked up. Like, that I should not have done that, because even Moss is saying, that was a smart move. And it was just like, wow, I'm a piece of shit. So, a very interesting moment. And then of course him finding out the truth that Moss wasn't involved, and he comes up with it where it was like, I couldn't say that because I didn't know if that was real or not, and stuff like that. But ultimately he knew. It sounded real. It ended up being real, of course, but ultimately it was just like, I couldn't risk it because I probably could have lost, because people would have had their faith restored in him. And like, that's just interesting. It was just a very interesting way to do it. And then of course Emily, basically totally lost faith in him. So it was just a great way to end it, where it was like, man, how do you continue going into season 4? So I'm looking forward to that. That's so loud out there. What are they doing? But of course, then we still have 2 other characters that have big moments. So I'll start with Seth, because I think Aaron has like another, like, more crazier moment even than Seth, which, oddly enough, it both ends up involving children by the end. But Seth ends up finding out that him donating sperm when he was in college ends up actually resulting in him having a daughter. So he ends up meeting his surrogate daughter, and it was just a crazy little thing. Then he ends up seemingly starting to build a relationship with her mom, and they start to talk and stuff, and we only see them talk only during like 2 scenes. Like, they meet the first time, and they have a good connection and stuff like that. And then of course they go to the in the final episode when they're at the election party and stuff, and they're talking, and they show his daughter like look over, and she's like, like, what the F is up with that? So I don't think that relationship's gonna go too well. Like, I don't know if they're gonna continue that relationship where, like, I feel like he has to choose, either it works with the mom or it's gonna work with his daughter. So I think that's how that'll play out, because I don't think he can have both, because she even referenced, like, we find out that she didn't know she was adopted. Like, she literally only found out after they got divorced. And she says, like, I took a DNA test out of spite just because I was mad. And then it's like, poof, oh, that's not actually my father. And she never knew. And it was like, oh, wow, that makes it a lot harder for her. And it changes that story where it was like, oh, she wanted to find her biological father. And that wasn't really the case. Or, she found him, but that's not what she was actually planning to do. It just happened to be like, surprise, you have a totally different father and you were never told. So it changed that element of the story. So, and then of course, Seth getting closer, because he didn't realize that she was specifically looking for him. He just thought it was kind of like, oh, you found me and that was it. And it was simple, but it turned out to be like a total devastating surprise to her. And then he's like trying to actually bond with her, and she was just kind of in this weird state of mind, like just wanting to know a little bit. So it was interesting. And like I said, I don't think he'll get to have both. They could do that, but it might, if it does work out in the end, I think it'll at least start with the tension where he kind of has to choose between being in a relationship for himself, or being in a relationship for his daughter, and just the two of them bond, and he doesn't get to be with her mom as well. So we'll see how that plays out, hopefully, if we get another season. But I thought that was really well done. And then of course Aaron's story in this season, very entertaining, where it was just back and forth with him and his girlfriend, whose name I also can't remember, unfortunately. Also can't remember the other dude who like respected her and gave her the position at the end. Can't, like, all the new characters I kind of suck at outside of Eli, and that's honestly because I like just read his name before starting the review. I can't remember because I'm so bad with names, especially when I binge watch stuff. Like if I watch it week by week, it makes it easier for me to remember names. But when I binge watch stuff, I'm just like, I hear names and they're in one ear and out the other. I'll remember all the plot details. I won't remember a single person's name, but I'll remember every single thing they did. Just nothing about your name, and that's it. But Aaron and his girlfriend, that was the storyline that I really enjoyed. He's going through, they're having these conversations. It's him, like kind of hiding his heritage because he didn't want it to be disrespected all the time and have all these different things said to him that he dealt with when he was a kid. So he changed his name, and they go through that concept, and his girlfriend not having done that, and she's like, fight for your right type stuff. So they're always having these back and forth arguments. And then I think it really did hit when he flat out said, like, what I'm doing is more important than what you're doing. And like, even as soon as he actually said it, and it was just kind of like, well, I guess that's kind of it. And I think that was the official point where it was like he said what he always kind of showed a little bit. Like, and she even called him out, like, at the end, even though she loved him and she wanted it to work even after he cheated, it was like, it just can't, because you don't even respect me, because every time something good happens, or every time I'm trying to do something, you demean me or belittle me, and you just don't see me as a person. You don't see me as an equal or a colleague. And like when she mentions her getting the position, the first thing he did was kind of like and it's like, oh, well, that's great. And it was like that right there, like that shock that I could possibly get something good. And that's why she breaks it off. And then of course we find out that by the end she's pregnant with his baby. So this is the dude who is now the vice president, and I'm sure he won't die, he'll be the vice president. So this is the dude who's now the vice president. People already don't know that they've already broken up to begin with, because they were keeping it going, for the show. And now, not only are they the couple that broke up during the run, but now she's also just like the baby mama, and it won't work. And it was her choice for it to not work, because she knew it couldn't because of how he treats her, or at least just sees her. So it was crazy. It was just like, I really do hope that we get another season for the show, because I want to see these storylines continue, because I think that it's such a good job with what the characters went through and what they learned and how they developed as characters. Emily, not really seeing Kirkman in the same light, because he decided not to put it out there, that Moss was totally innocent and he had nothing to do with it. So I don't know if that'll come up, which I feel like it has to, because the FBI comes in at the end of the during the season finale, and it was like, okay, well, the first thing I thought was, if they're there and they get all that information from the laptop or from the computer, which I assume she didn't delete all that stuff, because that was the whole point of the guy going, where it was like, scrub the whole system, which I don't know why she couldn't have done that herself, like just delete and but I mean, you could find that even if you put it in the recycle bin, but still, at least do that, like at least make some work out of it, do some work. But it's like, all right, just come in, scrub the whole thing so that no one can find any evidence. And once the FBI gets there, I'm like, okay, so if they do that, will they put that information out? Like, it's hard to tell, because I don't know what they'll do with that whole FBI element, where it's like, are they going to keep that information secret, or will they put that out to the public? Because they'd probably keep it secret, but it's hard to tell, because it's the FBI. It's like, they aren't just like a news source where it's like, oh, Moss is totally innocent, let's put it out there. At this point, it's almost like, what does it matter? Like, it's all said and done. It's just his reputation. So they could put it out there, but at the same time, it would all be classified information, because anything the FBI does is technically classified. So there's a lot of questions as to what that would lead to for season 4, but I'm like, they'd find that information. They wouldn't know Moss was innocent. So people would have that, and they would be like, all right, well, Kirkman, did you know about this? Emily, of course, knew, and she told him, and her lawyer as well. So there's like I feel like that investigation would come up because they'd find that information and then it's like, Mr. President, check this out, and then it's like, oh, did he know or did he not know? So I feel like that'll come up, hopefully, once again, if we do end up getting a season 4, which I hope we do. But man, good season, really good. I loved how they handled everything. Hate that Hannah's dead. That's my least favorite thing in the whole season because I just love Maggie Q. But a really good season. I like everything they did with it. And I really do hope we get a season 4. I would love to see what they do going forward with him having this turmoil of having 2 huge moments where he went full political. Like he went political versus personal. So we'll see what ends up happening. But I'm excited. I would love to see another season for the show. I was glad Netflix picked it up. And I think the writers continued and made it potentially the best season they've actually done so far. So I hope we get a 4th season for sure. Naturally, would love to know what you guys thought about it. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. Of course, what did you think about Hannah Wells dying in this season? How do you think they'll continue the FBI side of the series? Because without her, it's like Eli's cool, but he just showed up, and I don't have much of an attachment to him. He's also technically not an FBI agent. He's not going to be like going out in the field on his own. So unless they threw in another agent or something like that, it's just like, how do you keep that side going with the same level of interest, for people watching? So it'll be interesting to see how they decide to do that one. But we'd love to know what you guys thought about it as a whole. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.